All right, will you all join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Yep. Yep, me first, little. Yeah. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Yep, all clear, low. All right, well, good evening. With that, we will call the Town of Damariscotta Select Board meeting to order for September 21st. Before we get started, if it's all the same to the board, we'd like to recognize a couple of community members we have lost recently this week. Haas Toby was a staple here. He came to how many meetings was he coming to, Josh? You saw him?
I think he came to about every meeting.
About every meeting,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
Through the pandemic, he was Zoom in with us.
Zoomed in, yep.
He passed.
Yeah, earlier 11th. Was it in the 11th?
Yeah,
Yeah. So, he was involved with the waterfront planning and numerous other committees and whatnot. So it'll be, he'll be missed by his town. So anybody else, anything to
say add in. I didn't know him all that well, but I know some of you here know him quite well.
I got
so.
my instructions like the week before he passed. I went to visit. And
Uh-huh,
he
yeah.
gave me the instructions of how I'm supposed to move forward.
Good,
So
good, awesome. Well, we'll carry
I love him.
forth for him. So
Yeah.
he's an excellent man, nice man. A little bit I knew of him and spoke to him. So, and we also lost Donnie Lehman. Donnie Lehman's not a Damariscotta resident, but Bremen fire chief, but well known in the area. I think everybody knows Donnie and knew of him. So it's so it's an unfortunate week this week. So I need to mention those and move on. Anybody else anything to add? Go right ahead. We'll get started. So we'll move we can move along, start with the minutes if everybody's ready.
I'll make a motion to approve September 7th minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Josh. Tom seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, motion carries. We've got some financial reports, 2 payroll warrants. So we can do what, 14, 15 together, I think?
Yes,
It's all the same, yeah.
I move payroll warrants 14 and 15.
Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Josh, you going to second? Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, we'll move that along. And we have an accounts payable 16. I'll make a motion to move AP 16.
Second,
Who's going to second? Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, so
Abstaining
moved.
on that one.
And Josh, you're going to abstain. Okay, yeah. you're right.
Get my $15, get my $15 Main
All right,
Street.
so we have four
Firefighters.
and one abstain. Oh. All right, we can move right down to citizen comments and general correspondence. Do we have any this evening on the docket? Oh, we've got one. You can come up here and introduce yourself. We've got Anton as well. All right, so yeah, you're gonna be able to follow Larry, you think?
I'm sure you will.
Yeah, so
Don't make this any harder than it is.
Yeah.
I'm nervous wreck as it is.
we got a microphone in front of you now. So you should be
I'm
fine.
feeling better already because it's turned off, but it's okay. If anybody doesn't know me, I'm Larry Seidlinger. Today I wear the Pumpkin Fest hat. I apologize. 2 weeks ago, I was supposed to be here, but modern technology let me down. I forgot to put it on my schedule, and needless to say, the schedule didn't come out and tell me I had a meeting. But anyway, this is my annual meeting before the pandemic. I always came to the board to tell you what we was doing for the Pumpkin Fest, to inform and educate and answer questions that I could. We met a couple of weeks ago with Andy and Chief Wallach and the fire department from both towns, Newcastle and Damariscotta, the ambulance department, and I can't remember who else was there, the sheriff's department, I guess, and the town managers from both towns. And we basically formed a plan of what we want to do with the blessing of the selectmen. The initial plan is Pumpkin Fest is going to have a parade, and all the activities will be downtown. Nothing will be outside of town. We would like to close Water Street for the loading and unloading of buses on Saturday and Sunday, and Monday is a question mark depending on the size of the crowd, whether we're going to run buses or not. As you probably might have guessed, the cost of everything has gone up considerably. So we are trying to hold our cost in check. So we're holding off on buses on Monday, but we don't know how many people are going to be here. If we have really, really big crowds, well, we'll run the buses. If we don't, we'll always run the 3 small ones that are volunteered to us, but we won't hire the big ones from first student. But if we have to, we will. And this is such a crapshoot because we don't know how many people are going to be here, just like we don't know how many pumpkins we're going to have. We have an idea. So I guess if you dial up what the weather's going to be that week, that would tell us. So for street closures, we're looking to close Water Street for the loading and unloading of buses, and Elm Street, we're going to have a through traffic only down to the bookstore. And then we're going to, Coben Gale has donated the Elm Street parking lot for the use of where we're going to put the great giant pumpkin on the wagon. And we're going to do the buskers back there. And we may or may not do food vendors out there. So that whole Elm Street, Theater Street circle will be closed off.
Oh, gotcha.
I understand the Weatherbird owner closes the back behind King Ida's down anyway, so you can't get through. People will be able to drive down and go to the stores in the Elm Street Plaza. There'll be barricades petitioned that off so people can get in and park. And the same with Weatherbird, they can get in there and they can go out back to the bookstore. So we'll make sure that that's open, but there will be signage that says not a throughway and local traffic only and so to speak.
Yep.
My technology just went with my notes on it. Buses, like I said earlier, are going to run both Saturday and Sunday. The parade, we're looking to close Main Street down approximately 1:45 for the parade at 2:00. Hopefully, if we close 15 minutes before the parade starts, we'll be able to get all the people out from the barricades, which will be put up Saturday morning at approximately 6:00. And we hope Hugh can help us with that. We talked with Andy about that, and I guess we're still working through that. And we'll barricade in the street just like we did last year and the year before that. And we'll close Theater Street with just cones, and on both sides, Theater Street and Elm Street, where between Rennie's and King Ida's, there'll be just cones there. And I understand King Ida's is thinking of selling food out in the street there.
Oh,
The
okay.
parking spots behind the Nash building, we've put some nonprofits out there. Bath Ironworks is a for-profit. They've taken a large sponsorship to pass out flyers they're looking to hire help, obviously, just informational type thing. Theater Street is going to be, the parking spots is going to be for the informational booth and whatever nonprofits that we have. I think we've got the Ice Cream Kids and some, I don't know, there's 2 or 3 different nonprofits that we're going to put in parking spaces on that Theater Street. So that will be opened on Monday. So that street will be closed. Chief Wallach was in agreement that should be closed right through Saturday and Sunday and open Sunday night, because there's nothing going on in Elm Street on Monday.
Gotcha.
So we
Yeah.
hope to be able to tear Elm Street all apart, all the barricades down Sunday night, weather permitting. If it's raining, I ain't doing it on Sunday night, but if it's a nice night, I'll do it Sunday night. So,
Which day was the parade?
Saturday, which is the 9th, I believe, Linda.
Thank you.
Crossing guards, we have 3 of them hired, 1 at Water Street to get the buses in and out of Water Street. The buses will come down behind, in front of the First National, in front of the Baptist Church and in the back way on Water Street. And then they'll turn left or right to go to either Great Salt Bay or Lincoln Academy, where the parking is going to be. We'll have all the necessary signs up for that. The pumpkins, the plan is to have them removed 2 weeks after the regatta, so we don't have a big mess on our hands. I think everybody's all on that. The deployment, I'm kind of working backwards here. The deployment is going to be Thursday, the 7th, I believe, at 4:00. So the Chief Wallach's going to have hands on deck to help us with traffic and whatnot, as well as the Lincoln County Police. And one thing I forgot to mention on the parade is supposed to go off at 2:00. I hopefully it will. In 16, 17 years I've been doing this, it never started on time yet. There's always hope. So, but we're closing it down at 2:00, and we've asked the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department to keep it closed until they get the okay from Damariscotta PD to open it up, so that people, the last time we had a parade, we had people on Main Street in between the barricades and cars come in, and those barricades prevent 2-way traffic. So Chief Wallach was very concerned about that. So we're going to make sure that he is the one his staff is the one that gives the okay to Lincoln County to open up. But they will still, and Lincoln County is going to shut down, for your FYI, they're going to shut down the off ramp on Route 1 at approximately 1:45. But when they open it up, they're going to keep Main Street closed until get the okay from Damariscotta. But at least people will be able to come down the ramp and go to either River Road or Academy Hill or Mill Street. But we're trying to give the parade goers time enough to come up the parade route and then turn around and go back, because a lot of them have to go back to Louis Doe's to get their vehicles or whatever. So that's the game plan in a nutshell. So we certainly appreciate all the cooperation we get from Damariscotta. I know Andy's new at this, but hopefully we've educated him a little bit. If not, he will be educated here shortly.
Right in the fire. But yeah.
But we appreciate the cooperation from Chief Wallach, and especially from Hugh. I don't know what exactly his involvement's going to be this year, but in the past year he's been immensely helpful. So
So what about the regatta?
the regatta, good point, Tom. The regatta is going to go off on Sunday at noontime, with yours truly, Don Kerrigan, doing the call on that exciting event. And we'll be live streaming that to the Lincoln Theater, as well as to the YouTube pages of the Pumpkin Fest and Lincoln County TV. and that's on Sunday.
Cool.
And the Viking?
The Viking is supposedly on his way here now from wherever Vikings come from. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm here for questions. I'll do my best.
Larry, I had somebody call me the other day and ask they were, I don't know if it was a nonprofit or a vendor or something. They were trying to get in contact with somebody, just to see how the process went, but I didn't see anything on the website. Who would they contact? Like if
Jed Weiss.
oh, for Jed, they should get in touch with Jed.
Just
Okay.
get Jed.
Yeah.
Jed's.
I
the
wasn't
board,
sure.
The Pumpkin Fest has actually put together a formal board.
Yeah.
And we have a president, vice president, and an executive director, and that's Jed.
Got it. Okay. So reach out to Jed. Yeah.
And it's hopefully much more organized.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
And I think,
I wasn't,
I think it will be, I'm really hopeful it's going to be a real good pumpkin
yeah.
fest.
You guys put a lot of work into that over the last
They have, and the
few years.
pumpkins, we have,
many years.
we have
Yeah.
reports, there's a lot of pumpkins this year.
Oh,
And we
that's
actually
great.
found a pumpkin store,
Oh,
but I'm not going to tell you where.
all right.
But it has 25 big pumpkins in it.
Ah,
So
Interesting.
they're gonna bring those down. So,
Great,
Oh.
great. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed and it'll go
yeah,
well.
and they're all orange too, believe
And
me.
they're-
I saw, 'em. Yeah,
Nice, nice.
yeah, so.
Any questions for Larry at this point from anybody? All good?
No.
See the hands up online, so.
15 minutes of fame is over with.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you get.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, thank you very much.
Yeah, Larry,
Mr.
thank you for coming
Town
in.
Selectman,
Yeah.
Andy, thank you for
Sweet, so.
helping us out there, and I'm sure you and I will talk a few times as we get closer to it.
I'll circle back on Public Works.
Yeah, great. Okay,
I did
great,
have,
thank you.
I did have
Lose you
a
that much.
question.
What's that?
Is it true that Glenn Chadburn is using your face for his pumpkin this year?
Actually, that is not true, Louis, because Glenn is not going to be in town that weekend.
Oh, no.
He's not doing that's the biggest disappointment. He's
Oh,
not doing the
no.
King Idas. He is an award recipient of some horror drawing
Yeah.
down in Boston.
Oh,
And
wow.
he hasn't been able to go because they haven't had it for the last 2 years, and they're having it this year. So
Yeah.
he is going to be collecting his award. So I don't know who's drawing it.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, he's been doing that for years.
Yeah.
He has, like all 18 and 19, we've had the 17.
Wow.
Fest.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know what the answer is. I don't
See
know what that's not my, I do traffic. I do traffic and pumpkin racing. That's extent of mine. So any other questions? I'm good. If not,
Thank you
we're
very
going
much.
to get over it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you for all the effort you put in.
Yeah.
Yep, thanks. So we have another audience member. Yeah. Hey, Anton, come on up.
Anton Lonston, 35 Schooner Street. I'm sure I'm not as exciting as the discussion about Pumpkin Fest.
Oh, good to see you.
My notes, I have 3 comments that I'd like to make, and they're really triggered by the town manager's briefing that everybody has, as well as Andy's participation in our last meeting. First point is about Miles Street, and I recall from my notes that we've been advocating for 4 years at least for a sidewalk to help gain access to Miles in a safe way. It's a critical roadway, as you know. It's a chief employer in the county, and I would be very disappointed that if, in fact, the proper sidewalk is not installed, which would be a curb with granite curbs. And I know there's a big gap in the cost, and we've talked a little bit about it. I don't know how to solve it, but the walkers, the employees, the access to the hospital by Miles Street would be, I think, and residents of that area, well served by a proper sidewalk as compared to a sidewalk, which is simply an extension of the paved roadway. So I'm here as co-chair of the Public Safety and Accessibility Collaborative to support that. And again, I understand there's about a $70,000 difference in it, and that there is a search, I guess, if that's the right term, for some funds to help do that job properly. And I would hope somehow or other that they could be found. And I just want to reiterate our very strong support for that. Second point is the new town planner, Isabel Oxley, is participated with us on a couple of occasions. We think she's terrific. I know you're doing everything to try to keep her, and that there's a breakdown with the sharing with Booth Bay, and I think that's unfortunate. But her writing, I think her expertise has been appreciated, at least by me, and I think the committee. And I'm just here as a citizen to endorse the work she's doing and hope that the future looks bright for her in Damariscotta. The third point I've raised actually came out of the manager's notes, which I'm sure you've read, but in the comments on the town planner, the options, one of the options is pairing with Newcastle, and and the comment that struck me as I read this was the best option of the town would begin to foster this collaboration with Newcastle on this issue, could begin to foster a better partnership between Twin Villages and the town of Damariscotta. I'm a big believer in shared services. I spent 2.5 years volunteering on a commission, the Consolidation and Shared Services Commission in New Jersey. Some 12, 13 years ago, I spent hundreds and hundreds of hours dealing with shared services between two communities. And I could bore you with that, but I just want to say I'm an offer. If there's at any point discussions about further shared services to save the community money and improve the services. I think the services are great, but I think there's always opportunities to make them a little bit better. So I mentioned that, and I'm very pleased to hear that opportunity may exist. So Miles Street is my main concern. I just wanted to share that, and that's for our committee as well. Thank you.
Anton, thank you. Yeah, any questions for Anton, the board? Yeah.
It's
Sorry.
the public safety, he's co-chair of public safety
And-
for
Yeah,
Miles
Yes,
campus.
about 4 years ago, we formed a citizen group, not
Citizen
appointed
group.
by
Oh,
anybody.
Okay,
And we were working with Matt and now very much with Andy. He was in our last meeting. And it's an effort to do what we can as citizens to improve the safety and accessibility and the pedestrian walkways and bikeways and that sort of thing.
on
in
the campus.
In the community.
Town.
The whole
In the whole
community.
community.
The whole
Oh,
community.
the
I'm
whole
very much interested in
community.
the
Okay.
discussion on Church Street, but
Okay,
I know that's a work in progress and we've kept very much in touch with that. So I don't want to step over that one either, but it's there's a lot to do with that one. That's critical.
They've been, the committee, they've been very active. You've been in
Yeah,
countless
Facebook
meetings,
road,
Anton,
right?
coming in and
Yeah.
briefing, bringing everybody up to speed. So we appreciate it. And I think everybody, understands your concerns and as well as I think, appreciate you bringing your comments with Isabel and whatnot to the table here as well. So it's
Yeah.
good to hear when things are going well too. So
It's good for all of us. Thank you.
thank you, Anton.
Thank you.
Yep. It's, and I'll get you afterwards here, yeah. Do we have anything online, Jeff? I don't see any hands up anywhere, right? Okay, and any correspondence from? We good? Move on? Yeah, all right. So we, do you want to go through your capital updates now and run through those?
We can, what's the next on there? So for Church Street, I still have not heard back from, I tried calling again last week and just again today, to follow up on that additional data we need. In the absence of getting that going and that DEP process for grants this year, I was put in touch with someone at with FEMA through the state. Casey Stevens help us made that connection, and there's some grant options through FEMA if we wanted to try and go after that federal funding.
We should.
So I kind of,
Maybe.
there's
Oh.
some of those federal grants are a little stricter or a little more challenging to administer. So it's just acknowledging that in the hesitation. But the person we worked with,
Experience with that, have we?
she reassured us that, her job is to help us walk through the process. And, it might be one of those things that we look to work with another organization to help with the administering part and the reporting, because it is heavier on those federal grants, as you've probably seen with the EDA stuff so far. So, but that sounded promising. There is money coming through FEMA for resiliency efforts and building infrastructure and, things like, and that's what we've been looking at with this crossing, is to try and accommodate a couple different scenarios for flooding. And so it lines up well with that. It's in the hazard mitigation plan. So it's something that we're looking into. There is a deadline for one of the two grants that they offer coming up very soon. And that would be just for the replacement of the causeway. The second grant that they offer would be due later this calendar year, and the possibility of expanding that project to more than just the crossing, but including the drainage and sidewalk as well. So that's the building resilient infrastructure and communities grant. So I'm trying to do a little bit of research on that one and try and find some partners, because that's one of the scoring criteria is, having partners in that project. So I'm trying to reach out to some folks that might be partners in that.
Can they, there's already a sidewalk partially there. Why are we not putting the sidewalk where it already is?
It's a better question probably for the board. I'm not familiar as much with that history on that one. You mean through the section of Church Street, from the cemetery back to Pleasant primarily?
Right.
It was cleaner to go up on the other side, on the cemetery side.
Oh, really?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember.
Okay.
There's the rights of way.
Yeah.
They were a lot easier.
Oh,
If you go on
easier
the
to get it
housing
from
side, then you have to do your drainage on people's property, and it was we were owner of the cemetery
Anyway,
anyway.
Okay.
So
And eliminates, I think, some of the crisscrossing too,
Yes.
because the sidewalk from intersection of Hodgson and Elm is on the other side, right? And then you get to Pleasant and it crosses again. And then, from Castner Creek back up to Maine, we were going to put it on the other side again. So you'd be crisscrossing going down Church Street too.
Terrible.
yeah,
I mean,
and Andy
I walk it. every
Andy
day.
wanted to keep more of his
Right.
property.
Playing Frogger, yeah.
That's right. That was already going anyway. But you guys gave me the creaky chair.
Yeah, we did.
As far as the updates on the parking lot project, we did just today get the state DEP permit. So that was, something that was still kind of outstanding. We didn't anticipate any issues with it, but we hadn't gotten it yet. So that just came in today. We have sent the revised scope of work to EDA. We do need to send them some additional budget numbers and just kind of show them, from the original scopes of work, what those estimates were for those original scopes and how it's changed. When we submitted it, we didn't really present it that way. They didn't ask us to present it quite that way. So the engineers are going to spend a little bit of time kind of putting the numbers in the way they want to see it. I think the biggest thing there is, we're taking up the construction of the flood wall, and, they're wondering, well, there's a big cost associated with that when you send it in. So how would you spend, are you asking for the same amount of money still? And so the answer is yes. And to try and explain why it's still the same amount. So inflation's a big part of it.
Mhm.
And I don't think originally that when they were looking at it, one of the criteria for the Clomar was in part this large catchment system under the parking lot. So that's more of an emphasis now and trying to keep that in the project scope. And so if in the future a wall is in mind, you've at least got that already in place to help with that criteria. So kind of explaining that to them is, kind of the inflation and a shift in some of the costs that way. And then we're getting closer with the sanitary district for the transfer of ownership of that infrastructure, the pipes. At this point, and my understanding is it would just be the force main that ran through there that we've put in, and then the pipes from the force main to the catch basins or the
Mhm.
manholes. So we're working on those, whatever they need to help make that happen. So I don't know if it'll be within the next 2 weeks, but we're working on it.
They had requested what an as-built plan.
Mhm.
Yeah, is that all done and finished?
There,
Form or-
we were waiting for confirmation that that's all they needed.
That was all, okay.
And so I got a call today. And Jan did, our engineer did as well. He got one, I think Tuesday. And so that's our understanding at this point is that's what the trustees would need.
That's all I need. Okay, that would be awesome to get that
Right.
Mhm.
Mhm.
tied up
Yeah.
finally. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, thank you, Andy. Okay.
For Mile Street, we talked about
Yeah.
that. I did have a meeting with our engineer on that project, Andrew Hedrick and Brooke Spetz from the hospital. And so, they have a similar challenge as we do in terms of additional funding. If there's a gap in, or they don't use the full contingency for the water line portion of the project, they'd be willing to put some of that additional unused funds that they committed for the water line to the sidewalk. But we don't know until they get built and done what the remaining balance will be.
Yeah,
So
what's
it's
left over.
really thin there. We know with what we've got available to us, we know if just our funds, we're about 70,000 short. So we still don't have a solution there or an offer there to say we've got the gap funding. But hopefully I think there's some efforts out there to try and help find that.
There's very serious effort out there.
That's good to
Yes.
hear. Okay. So you want another couple weeks? Is that what you're looking at?
I'm
before we-
hoping, because I don't want to leave the contractor hanging on it. I mean, I don't think.
Well, I
they're
was gonna ask you,
concerned.
how is the
Yeah.
contractor all right with, I don't like to leave people hanging either,
Right.
so.
Yeah, the notice of intent to awards gone out, and I know they've been talking with the engineer about some of the bid bonds or the bond performance bonds.
Performance bond, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that we're back and forth on that, at least just keeping them in the loop on where we sit with some of that. So
Okay. So at least a contractor knows that we're working on
Yeah.
the finish, getting the
Yeah.
funds to see what we can allocate.
So I think
that-
probably out of fairness to them, I don't know what your thoughts are, if you wanted to try and have to make a decision by the next meeting, just to be able to button that up, the contract up with them, or how you want to handle that. Like I said, they're not going to want to leave it in limbo
Oh,
too
I
long, so
know.
we
I
have to
think-
buy
I think-
material and
Yeah.
here's some
We
things.
had said, 2 weeks, next
Mm.
meeting last time, so I don't know how long we can keep, there has to be a set date at some
Right.
point. I don't know how you feel about it with
It's gonna have to be.
gonna have to be. So I think we'd have to have a hard line by next meeting, as long as the contract is okay with a
Right.
couple more weeks. So we'd have a number, but I don't know how
Right.
the rest of you feel about that, but
We need the 2 weeks.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so 2 weeks, but after that, we'd have to have a hard line
If
with,
it's
The
kinda
committee
not-
that's working
Yeah.
on it can make it
there's people
happen.
working on it. Okay.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
but we do need the 2 weeks.
So I think sounds like we're all fine with that, as long as we've got 2 weeks, we can say,
Okay.
this is what we're doing, because
Andrew, who's working on it? Who's the committee? Or,
Should I
Is there
say-
some-
I
oh.
don't think I should say publicly. should I?
No.
oh,
There's some.
all right, all right. all right.
Yeah.
Citizens.
Yeah,
Thank
private
you.
efforts.
All right, private. That's a committee. That's-
Yeah, sorry, Tom. I'll tell you.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, that's good to know. There's some effort. Yeah, I think thanks goes out to everybody that's interested in trying to make that happen. So, yeah. Okay, good. So we'll have something, 2 weeks, we can have something settled and let them know. So, all right. Sounds good. All right, they can keep going here.
Yep, other than that, Public Works is set, is it next week? Yeah, middle of next week, we'll have an excavator for a week, so we got a couple projects, the Keen Woods. There's 3 culverts we need to replace out there, so they've got that prepped and ready to go. We're gonna install the septic tank early the following week for the Public Works facility. And then that hopefully will get them much closer to having the toilet facilities functioning
Mhm.
properly. And then they'll be on deck for Pumpkin Fest. I know at least one of them's interested, willing and able to help on the weekend and anything for the after hours needs that they might have. So last time we talked, I think I understood that anything that's incurred, for any overtime outside of the regular duties, there's some things we will be doing part of the regular workday, but the weekend stuff and that additional cost to us, we didn't really budget for it. So if I understand right, we would just look to, if their Pumpkin Fest is amenable to that, we would bill them for the overtime hours worked for the staff.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's the plan.
The fire department, and Josh might, I don't know if you have a little more information on it, but Chief Roberts had shared that they passed the shape inspection through the Bureau of Labor. That's a program that you guys have been in good standing for a while. I think it was the COVID break there. I don't think they were doing inspections for at least one of those years, maybe.
We made, as expired this June or
Yeah.
July or whatever it was, and we were lucky to have our timing right.
Yeah.
So,
Josh, what is can you explain those, what's the shape?
Safety Works for the
Mhm.
Maine Department of Labor will come in and you have to meet certain criteria,
Oh.
all your paperwork, hose testing, gear checks,
Gotcha.
station checks, truck checks.
Yeah.
You name it, everything, all your training records, every documentation, everything has to be to their standards. And like
Workplace safety.
workplace safety,
Got it.
everything
Yeah.
is.
So we have them coming in to look at public works within the next couple of weeks. There was
Oh.
a miscommunication on the previous date. We were there ready and that no one showed up. So
Oh, gotcha.
we've rescheduled that. So they're gonna come to Public Works. And so what they can do is if you call them up and for the shape program, they can come out and do like an audit, a pre-audit. And they can come up with a checklist of things you should do. But to Josh's point, they'll look and see, do you have the policy? You know, when you go through the shape program, they look and say, has everyone on your department or in your, in staff that's following these policies, have they read and signed off on them?
Yeah,
And so they really go through
Everything.
yeah.
in that
Everything.
regard.
And the fire department passed with flying colors.
Yes.
Yeah.
They didn't
Well, that's,
find, they didn't find anything. We asked a question, well, John asked a question about our new ropes for low angle rescue. We had check sheets on that and he just wanted to ask about harnesses and whatnot. So
Yeah.
that was one place we had asked the question, so they didn't find it, so.
Credit should go out to our fire chief and his dedicated firefighters for that. If they, that's pretty
Mhm.
impressive. So, and we have to remember, these are all volunteers. So it's not a full-time job, but they're doing full-time work. So it's impressive. Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome.
I think that's all I had for this. There's other things on there, if they come up later in the.
Yep. Gotcha. We can, any questions about public works or any of the capital projects?
No.
Randy, we good? All right. Well, let's move on. We've got a consent agreement to discuss, and is that what you want to move on to next, Andy?
Yes.
Yep. All right. Jumping, waiting here patiently in the back row there.
So this is kind of picking up a little bit. There was a building permit application that came in from a property owner, the Balins. This was related to something that came in June, I think it was, the annual town meeting. It was presented to us that there was a potential for a illegal subdivision. The Bob Fonts had worked with Rob Gregory on a letter for the board to sign of no action. And at a time, the attorney had presented it as that there wasn't a subdivision created because of a few exceptions in the law. And so it was this building permit that came in that, we still were under the impression internally that there was a subdivision that had been created. And so this consent agreement is an attempt to try and get that subdivision into the planning board for approval and consideration, but also allows the Balins to be able to proceed with conditional approval.
Rereading. So I know. So we're
Yeah.
quite rereading it again. So, yeah.
Amanda, our attorney, had
Yeah.
helped work on, I'd done a first draft, and over the weekend, she was able to look at it again. And I know she's been in communication with the attorney. Louis here, he had come in yesterday and spent some time with Isabel and I, kind of going over a few things as well.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Hey, Lou, yeah, come on up. I was just gonna say, yeah, come on up and we'll get you in the hot seat over there. How's that sound? Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I'm used to being on.
Yeah.
Um,
Just a quick introduction to yourself. Yeah, we know who you are, but
okay, so Louis Cameron,
Yeah, thanks.
Cameron Cove Lane. formerly Garden Place. I had to name it after myself because I couldn't remember it,
Yep.
literally. When my
Gotcha.
wife used to work here. So, in this situation, I'm gonna do whatever the heck I can to make sure the Balins can produce a house. That we sold them the property in good faith, with the CEO available on every transaction I ever did. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of the nitty gritty details, but Stan was involved right from the gift to my daughter to the subsequent sales and approved all of them. Okay. And he has a email, I don't know if you guys have seen it, testifying to the fact. So I don't know why we're here, really. You had a town planner that basically said it's not a subdivision in a email back out on 6/20, I think it was. Very clear. I don't know. I just look back up. I will do whatever I have to do. That's that understood. I just want to, I'm not trying to be a hard ass, just trying to, in good faith, make sure the Balins can build their house. And I really did do everything right that I thought I could do. When you take it to the CEO and he says, yeah, you can do this, and you do it. And then a year and a half later, you're like, well, you just made a subdivision. Well, it's just as a stupid lobsterman, it's kind of hard for me to understand this because I bought when I was first gifted the first 12 acres, lot 1, and then I bought the house the year later that came with the other 3 acres. One of them had to be re-gifted because it wasn't in the purchase and sale. So they'd come back a couple months later and say, oh yeah, by the way, we've got to put this in there. But they were 4 separate lots that had been deeded and surveyed and all that. There's 3 lots now. Well, some would argue there's 4 because the Packs who ended up buying my daughter's property, because that was the first one was gifted. She got divorced. She had to sell the property. They bought that. They ended up buying the lot that we sold to the mother behind them. So now, according to the land use ordinance, that's 1 lot. They own 2 lots right next to each other. They're contiguous. That's 1 lot. And then there's the Balins lot. And then there's me. There's 3 people living on Cameron Cove Lane. That's it. There were 4 lots. Now there's 3. I don't, but again, to reiterate, whatever it takes. I know that
A confusing one for all of us. I think.
I know, and
Yeah.
I've been on boards. I know that
Yeah.
sometimes it's you guys are practically volunteering your time. I know you can't get down into all the
No,
nitty gritty of it.
uh,
But you did have a couple lawyers that stood up that, well, one of them who actually found the mistake subsequently came back and said, hey, I'm on board with former planner Fonts. This isn't a subdivision anymore. Maybe it was at one point in time when these mistakes were made, but at this point in time, you qualify, I guess there's something called the homestead exemption, which I thought was just a monetary thing. But in regards to land use, and I have the subsection, blah, 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 basically says your house doesn't count as a lot because you live there, especially if people live there 5 years. I've lived there 5 years now. So I guess this would be like an after the fact sort of thing. That's why these guys were moving for like a no thing. But if that's not what you want to do,
Yeah.
I'll do whatever it takes again, because these guys are going to put in a pretty good sized house and it's going to be pretty good revenue for the town, so that's a good thing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was,
So anyways,
I was surprised they came back too, Louis. So
What's
Yeah.
that?
I was surprised to see this back too, but
I was.
Me too.
Well, Rob was hoping that you guys would go along with, there's so many Robs. There's
The
Bob.
original. Yeah. Yeah.
With Bob Fonz's assessment back on the 20th of June that, he's a town planner. I think he would know what that all means. And
Yeah.
we did find the discrepancy as far as, the date and all that, but here we are. So, I've sat down with Andy, sat down with new town planner.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna get it underway. It's just hard. I mean, I've been up since 3. I'm not afraid of getting up early in the morning, but it's
Thanks for a long day.
my wife goes to bed worrying. She's like, what did we do wrong? What did we do wrong? And Bob was great. Bob Fonts was like, look, because I'm all apologetical. What the hell did I do wrong here? Thought I went through Stan. I thought everything, he's like, his assessment was the only thing I did wrong is I gifted to my daughter too soon. That's it. Because you can gift to your daughter, you can gift a piece of land at any point in time and it's not considered a division. But you have to have been there for 5 years.
Yeah, that's right. If I.
Well, Stan still argues that, and Stan's a great guy. I've been talking with him too. He's of the same mind. He doesn't see how this can be considered subdivision. I know Amanda Meter does think it's a subdivision. I know she's your attorney, but you have two other long-standing attorneys in town that have been here forever, that live here and work here, that are saying. So, and just one other point before I tail it out of here and leave it in your capable hands. I heard recently, I don't know the details, but a similar situation just came to pass in Newcastle. Cowshed Corner. I don't know who owns it, but I guess a subdivision was inadvertently created. And a buy was given by the, I don't know if it was the board or the planner or whoever. I don't know the details. I just know that it happened and it wasn't that big of a deal. And I guess this stuff happens sometimes. And you guys have the ability to just say, hey, that's what I'd like. It seems to me the easiest way around it, but again, to stress, I will do whatever is necessary. I will work with whoever I have to work with to make sure. I in good faith did all the things I thought I did.
Yeah.
As long as you guys understand that I didn't just go, hey, give land away. I didn't do that. My wife worked there. She checked with Stan annoyingly. And Stan's like, no, you're good. You're good. So anyways, that's all I want to put on the table. I hope I haven't been an idiot.
No,
No.
Say something.
I'll tell you, Louis, I'd tell you.
All right,
Appreciate you
so-
coming in and.
All right, so I'm gonna leave that in your capable hands.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, Andy, what is, so the consent agreement, I mean, is this agreeable to all parties? Is this something that will work for everybody or?
Through our attorney Amanda and Rob, Rob had said that he thought it would work.
Which Rob?
Rob.
There's three
Gregory.
Robs.
Rob Gregory.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, Rob didn't want to go along with it. Rob wanted to go with Bob Fontz's idea. He
Yeah.
will go along with it, but remember, understand something. Rob he's a friend, obviously,
Yeah.
and he's my attorney. But he was more helping me out here. He's kind of, because when
Yeah.
Marcia DeGear found the discrepancy, he jumped right on board and he's like, let's clear this up. Because I think it originally went through his title company. I could be wrong. I don't know. I know that a lot of people had a chance to see this. And Rob and Amanda and Bob were like, hey, if you just rule this way, everything goes away. It's not a subdivision and the packs can get there. What's the term? Can't get too many things. Building permit. But if you want me to
So
go.
this would
subdivision-
expedite their building permit, correct? But it still leaves them open to planning board, right?
Right.
So was the planning board on board with, do they know?
They'll know once there's an application, other than anyone that might have heard about it. But,
Because we would hate to see this get approved by us.
Right.
And then the planning board say, no, we don't want to.
Well, that was my
This is
question.
what
to
happened
Andrew
last
and the
time.
other lady yesterday was, what if I do this?
This is what happened last time.
Yeah.
And then they say no, and
It's changed.
keep in mind, Lori Balin has been put on the back burner on this, and she's, with every inflation, with schedules and trying to get contractors on site, she's really desperate to get this moving forward. I've got the original surveyor on board to do whatever the planner. I'm hoping I can get things done before, when do they meet, the planning board?
They just
Next month?
met. They met on Monday.
First Monday of the month typically.
Yeah.
First
They just-
Monday, so I've got 2 weeks to try to get this all together, and I'll bust my hump to do it. But it seems to me a no action letter would solve everything. Because as I said, I had 4 properties. Now there's only 3 owners.
I recall, and the reason we didn't
Because it was
there was-
we kind of agreed that there was no issue now.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
That's why we didn't go any further.
So, yeah, if an offer, and Isabel's, I know, has got her hand up, but
Oh,
to regards to the previous meetings
Oh,
and the
good.
previous, when they came forward the first time, I mean, how I recall this happening was the attorney presented what they had found in Bob Fonts was still here and he presented the memo
Yeah.
saying, we believe there's been an inadvertent subdivision. Here's what we propose the town do. And it was a letter of no action. We wanted our attorney to look at it. The next meeting, Mr. Gregory had come back and said, actually, don't believe there is a subdivision. We found these exceptions in the state statute. And so
Well, wait,
board
there's a
still-
step in there. When you guys decided you wanted to have your attorney look at it, she basically said, well, that's going to take too much time and cost too much money. My suggestion is go for a planning, a subdivision. Like it's just some easy thing, like, yeah, I'll just go for a subdivision, but it's not. You guys know that's an involved
No,
task.
it's a whole different process.
And
yeah.
so Rob then doubled down in the sense of with his discovery with Mr. Fonts, because Bob Fonts was really integral into this. He really delved down into the nitty gritty. And he actually discovered that because there were 4 original lots that when we sold to Balin, a little sliver was created of the original lot 1, like only 10 feet on the water. And he's like, you can't have that. And then I'm like, well, actually I don't, because if you remember, I did a confirmatory deed after I gifted my daughter. So I actually only had 1 lot. So there was the, at that point in time, the Packs owned their property, the Balins, and then me, just 1 lot. That's it. And that's as it is now, according to the, the taxes, when you get your bills, the Packs get a bill, I get a bill, and the Balins get a bill.
Mhm.
That's it. 3 people.
So the Packs own the 2 lots together.
Yes, they originally bought my daughter after she got divorced. And then what happened is I was approached by the mother-in-law of my daughter's ex-mother-in-law. You want to sell some property? Yeah, okay. Can I, Stan? Yeah, go ahead. No problem. And Stan's quote, which will always to me, I never understood it and I never even bothered to try, was you can do 1 gift that doesn't count and you can sell 2 properties. Always said that. So, okay, so we did. We sold 2 properties. And so what happened, and this is where Rob came back and said, wait a minute, the Packs have purchased, and they did that this year. They purchased that land from Moki, her name's Margaret Porter. That wipes out 4 properties. You only have 3 properties down there. So yeah, it's kind of an after the fact sort of thing, but it does kind of solve the issue. You only have the Packs property, the Balins and the Camerons. That's 3 lots. And mine under the statute doesn't count.
So Isabel,
And I was
can
gonna-
you opine on this? You were at the planning meeting, I assume.
We're gonna
So
bring
this was actually after I started, so I can, sort of provide a summary of events from everything that I am aware of after I started in July. So I am aware that Bob had previously submitted a memo to the planning board as well as this body indicating that he concurred with Rob Gregory that there was not a subdivision. When this was brought in front of this board at around the same time, early July, I believe that there was still a question about whether or not a subdivision violation had existed. And as I understand it, the direction that the board provided was that if Amanda were to look into this, again, it would be at the taxpayer's cost. So at that time, the board wasn't interested in pursuing that further. A couple of, perhaps a month ago, Ms. Balin reached out to the code enforcement officer as she was looking to find financing on her construction loan and asked us to provide written confirmation that no subdivision violation existed. At that point, because of everything that was still up in the air, we were not comfortable providing written confirmation that no violation is existing without asking an attorney. As the select board might be aware, Maine Municipal Association occasionally will provide legal services for its member municipalities for free, since we pay dues into them. And we reached out, by we, I mean the code enforcement officer and I reached out, sent over Bob's original memo as well as all of the attachments and deeds submitted by the various stakeholders in this process. And the response that we got back from Maine Municipal Association was that in the opinion of their attorney that we had spoken with, subdivision review is required for the most recent division resulting from the conveyance to Balin in May of 21. And also likely for a previous subdivision violation that would have occurred with the conveyance to Porter back in May of 2020. And then they provided a variety of conveyances as they understood them at that time. And according to their reading of the subdivision statutes, the divisions that occurred again in May of 2020 and May of 21, both would have triggered subdivision review. And then what is more, their opinion was that it was acceptable for the planning board to require retroactive subdivision review of both divisions at this point. And sort of that's where it ends. I do want to be clear that Lewis is correct that there are a variety of exemptions to what defines a subdivision included in state statute. One of them being that a division of land accomplished by order of court doesn't create a lot or lots for the purposes of this definition. The further opinion of the attorney that we had reached out to at Maine Municipal Association was that the order in the divorce decree or the divorce decree was not a specific order to divide land. The land had already been divided and then it was an order to sell the property. So in her opinion, the land would count. I think I'm giving a little bit more information than might be needed.
There, but at one point, Rob thought, well, hey, the court trumps everything. When the court steps in and says, you have to sell that, that's no problem there.
Right.
But then he said, wait a minute. That's where Andy had pointed out yesterday. Well, he kind of retracted that. He retracted it because he didn't really know. He didn't know about the PAC thing. They had put it together, and that was Bob Fonce's word. He's like, wait a minute, the PACs own both of these.
Yeah.
So court order or not, that's one lot. Okay, so here we are. You got, I know, I'm like,
Well,
I want to just.
The thing that bothers me about all of this is that this wouldn't have happened if a town employee didn't give bad information.
Yeah.
So he's not responsible in my mind for the violation.
Thank you.
What is the,
That's the
agree.
first time.
what's the risk of a letter of no action at this point?
That's, well, you're not an attorney, but you probably know. So
I mean, I
what
know
would
that's
you say?
Andy too.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think-
What would be the risk to the town?
I think I can't answer that particular question, but I think it's important to note that, we're not asking for there to be a significant fine. We're all the town right now is what we've drafted is asking for a subdivision plan because the history and what we saw happen in looking back, a subdivision had been created. This consent agreement acknowledges that the town's role in that. There's no fine associated with this. It allowing the Balins to proceed with their timeline for financing. So I think, from what
But
Isabel and I and Corey,
you're asking me to apply for a subdivision.
Well,
When,
I'm going to make a motion to approve the consent agreement because we can sit here all night and argue on about it.
To approve
The
this
bail-
consent agreement?
Yes, and the Balins need to get moving on the house. So,
I have to
I-
go forward with the subdivision?
well, that's what
Well,
was approved by Amanda Meter and your attorney, Rob
No,
Gregory.
he didn't approve anything. He just said that's what happened.
Yeah,
would
I
have
worry
to-
about.
I-
But
Go ahead.
I'm just,
You made a motion?
yes, I made a motion.
Josh made a motion.
Just
Is there a
discussion.
second on Josh's motion? Here, no second. Okay, the motion's gonna die right.
I
Now,
am very
um,
concerned about this whole thing because number one, our town employee made a mistake. And then your daughter was forced to sell that land,
Yes.
which screwed it up. That's not your fault.
Thank you.
Culpability on this at this point. Yeah.
This whole thing bothers me that you're in this position.
Yeah.
That our taxpayers are in a bad position. And I don't like the idea of this. I prefer to take and see a waiver be given or an exemption, whatever we have to do.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
I think you guys need to be very careful what road you just went down.
Well, we're also looking at intent. You know,
Yes.
You got to take into factor intent.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's,
but you also have to remember that you have to look at the big picture. We have standards for subdivisions for a
Yeah.
reason. We have,
Yeah, but the whole thing, go back to the point that he was told it was okay by an
Yeah.
employee.
moving forward, we need to correct it on our behalf
Sure.
as well as his
Not at-
behalf.
Not at their, not
Not
at
at
their
their
expense at this
expense.
point.
But
Not at-
still, you still have to look out for, and this is the best scenario at this point.
No, it's gonna require him to file a subdivision plan,
And the-
which is
and the planning board can
expensive,
still take it back.
probably.
Yeah.
Right.
They could.
So
then
how
what do I do?
complicated is it to file a subdivision plan?
It can be, it's a whole nother, yeah, they have to have the roads, the driveways have to be a certain size. It's a, it's a whole
Yeah.
nother.
Isabel can probably answer that.
Yeah.
Isabel,
Um,
how
Yeah,
difficult
yeah.
is it?
I don't want to give a, specific answer to how difficult it is, but you're correct. There are a variety of standards that they would then be held to. One of those would be extending the road to this Balin lot at the end of the sort of at the end of the existing private road area. And additionally, there is the time and the fees associated with a subdivision review by the planning board. So I certainly don't want to knock that very real issue. The other thing that the board should be aware of is that, as I explained to Louis when we spoke, that the subdivision isn't just as simple as sort of going in front of the planning board. Once you have filed a subdivision plan on the registry of deeds, anytime that is amended, including lot line revisions or further dividing, needs to go back to the planning board for their review. So I think as you're making your decision, I just want to be clear that that is a very legitimate factor to be considered for the applicants involved here. Yeah, the applicants involved in this
Basically makes it
situation.
harder for them to subdivide later. That's the way I took it. That's the way I explained it to Lori and Nicole when I talked to them right after I talked to Isabel yesterday, and I'm like, you're gonna have, if you ever want to subdivide your land legally, now you have to go to the planning board because you're part of a subdivision. And I just,
So right now, we have a motion on the table. We have a second. And the motion, if you repeat your motion, I'm sorry. this
I
was
make a
letter of-
motion, we grant an exemption,
Letter of no action.
a letter of no
Which we
action.
originally
or
asked
what-
for.
So who are you gonna have draft this letter of no action?
it's already been drafted. Rob has one
They
on,
haven't drafted
Amanda
it.
Meter and Bob Font's already signed it.
And Amanda,
Not Amanda Meter, I'm sorry, what's that lady's name? The other attorney, the gear.
The gear.
She signed it with Rob and Bob Font's was on board with it as well. So
But
it's already drafted.
our attorney was not on board with it, correct?
She wanted
She's
to
not
do
on
more
board.
research. She didn't want to take without doing her own due diligence on the research into the subdivision piece of it. She wanted to do her own due diligence, just as MMA's attorneys did,
Yeah.
to give their opinion.
We've
so
got-
so
we've
we're
got-
saying,
oh, sorry, go
sorry,
ahead, yeah.
so we're saying that anytime you have a lot of land, if you want to sell part of it, you have to apply for a subdivision?
No.
No,
No.
there's more
But
to it.
there's
than
certain more
It's
to it
part
than
of it,
that.
but no, there's more
Yeah.
to it. There's certain,
Yeah.
certain parcels of it, and there's a amount of time you have to be there. There's a lot of
If-
moving
if
It
you-
all
parts.
has to
but it
do with the
won't-
fact that he
Yeah.
wasn't there for 5 years and he gave his daughter land,
In part.
partly.
Yeah, well, and there's also, yes, there's,
Well,
beyond that, there's some town ownership on this.
A lot of ownership.
And there's also, there's an intent issue that I'm looking at. I don't see an intent here
no.
that was,
And-
that there's any.
And
reason
if
we
this
should hold
helps
up
at all,
this
we
one.
have no plans on
Yeah.
doing anything else. We're really
Yeah, well,
happy and
we
content. with
can't
where we
assume-
are.
In fact,
can't
it's currently
assume
not a
that, though.
subdivision. It's, which is why we thought if we didn't say anything, okay, it's not a subdivision, then we don't have to rule on anything, then it should be fine. But See not. So I think call for a vote at this point, a discussion. All those in favor? I got three, opposed? One opposed? Andrew, you
I
abstain?
don't feel comfortable doing anything.
Yeah, you can abstain.
I'm abstaining.
Yep, so we get three, motion carries.
So what does that mean?
That's gonna be a letter of no action.
Thank you. Dear Lord, thanks. So can she resubmit her building permit after this is drafted?
We've got, Andy, what's the process? We have the,
Great question. I'll have to consult our attorney. That's all I can say.
For a building permit? Can't she just
Well,
resupply?
for the letter of no action. So, because we have to sign a letter of no action,
Nope,
which is
nope.
presented to us.
But he already
Last
has
time.
it, don't you?
Yeah, it was drafted. but-
What's that?
It's already been drafted.
I
The,
think it's
the,
something
the,
our
the
attorney
draft
needs
for
to
it
look
by
at.
Rob Gregory, he already drafted that with Marcia DeGear's signature. I could probably pull it up right here, but I'll have him send it to Andy.
Send it to Andy.
And that would-
Satisfies their financials.
But I think the way that,
So does this board want our attorney to look at that document again?
why does she need
We
to?
No.
already did.
No, no.
No,
Why?
because she's already seen it.
If I could read Bob Fonz's
Already did.
letter, it
We
might
already
help.
I just asked the question. I don't need any more information.
I would strongly advise that you.
Already just did.
You consider having our attorney do look at it just to make sure it covers all her bases in the town's interest, but that's just my recommendation as your manager.
Well, we can do that offline here.
So I'll contact Rob and say, go ahead and forward the letter.
Yep.
The one that they signed. And then advise Balin to resubmit her building permit after that.
They've already submitted it once. So what did it get kicked back, Andy? And then what do they?
The building permit was denied because the town, from what our code enforcement officer, Isabel, and myself looked at the facts, and we believe it was an illegal subdivision. So however it got there. And so that we had to deny it because the code officer couldn't sign off on it, knowing that there was this
Sure.
believed.
So she can resubmit that and it'll be signed.
That would be one thing she'll need to do. I can't tell you the exact steps in the timeline because I still, think that.
I'll talk to
we should
Rob
have
tomorrow.
our attorney look at it,
I'd
but
just like to say thank you to the board for seeing it and taking ownership of it. And I'm just pleased to, I don't know what to say. You guys rock. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. And I'll give Rob a call tomorrow and I'll call Lori tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank
I'll
you.
get out of your hair.
Yeah. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Where does that leave us here? We have a couple
Cemetery.
more official action items.
Mowing.
So the faded things, those are the new items, right?
yeah, sorry, I didn't print it in color and I wasn't remembering that it had a different color. But the items on your sheet there that are kind of faded are the additions that
Oh,
the
right
cemetery trustees would like to have considered included in the next contract. The contract's up for renewal. There was an extension from the 2020 contract. I think it was 2020. April 2020. And then, so the extension's already gone through its period of time. With these additions and the fact that the extension's been met and there wasn't a provision for an additional extension, the trustees are kind of asking the board, do you want to put it out to bid at this point? I think it's with the policy you have, you need to, because it's over that $15,000 threshold that the charter just increased to. Always the board has the opportunity to waive it in the best interest of the town. I forget exactly what the contract, the amount is. I think it's 27,500. The,
Any idea what the estimates on these extra items is?
no, they didn't ask for them for that at that point. They were just covering the bases, the two additional cemeteries, a couple other items. I believe Martha's and Patty are both on this evening. If you have questions for the.
I just look at you adding another cemetery and you're changing the scope of services for
Yeah.
the contract, so. And I know previously we had the previous to the current person that was mowing it, they tied the last bid. So when it came time to bid, the two of them had the same price.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So it
So
wouldn't hurt to put it back up to bid then.
may want to put it back out to bid.
Yes.
Yeah. Sound good?
Yeah, I don't know if Patty or Martha, they did.
Oh, Patty
take
in
the
there?
Time to
Yep.
join us. I don't know if they have anything they want to add.
Patty, sorry, didn't see you on there. Oh.
That's okay. I, as a taxpayer, I fully understand the thought of going to bid. I will just throw a thought in to the process. And that is that, first of all, some of you may not be aware, some of you were on the board, some not, that what we're doing here is adding the mowing for the 2 cemeteries that the town took ownership of this past year. When you didn't take ownership, you recognized longstanding ownership of the 2 that had originally been given to the town of Noblesboro in 1790 that landed on the Damariscotta side of the line in 1848. So there was recognition by the board earlier this year that those 2 sites are in fact town property and therefore need to be considered as part of the town responsibility for mowing and maintaining those additional 2 cemeteries. The last time we went out to bid, we did have a second bidder, and Josh is right, it was an exact tie on the cost. I believe the time before that, we may not have had an additional bidder. The current contractor has been doing this work for a number of years to high satisfaction for us. And as it happens, Damariscotta Historical Society has been paying the same contractor to take care of the other 2 prior to the recognition that they really do belong to the town. So this particular contractor is very experienced and is turning in quality work consistently, both on the 3 sites we've been maintaining all along and also on these 2 additional sites. Just as an FYI, that's in place. Whether we can get somebody else to bid or not, I don't know. If we're going to do that, we need to get a pre-bid walkthrough going quickly before it gets too cold for us old ladies to be out there tramping around all over 5 sites.
Thank you, Patty. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, if the cemetery committee, and this is what they do, if they're satisfied with the current contractor who's experienced and has done a great job so far, do we need to put it back out?
Well, I look at it this way, is the previous one before the current one took over is currently the one for Newcastle. Mows all the cemeteries for Newcastle. We never had any problems with that company
Anyway, okay.
So when they tied, we went to the current one. But
Excuse me, Josh, the person who tied with us last year was not the one prior to the current contractor.
well, maybe it was two before. It was
before.
Property Care Plus. was the
Okay, they have not been part of this in my 10 or 12 years, just so
Yeah.
I believe you that it was before that, but it was
Before
before my
that.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe it was FNS that was before.
Yeah,
But
that's where we
Property Care
started when I
Plus
came
still
on.
does Newcastle.
Okay.
Okay.
And they've done it for quite a while, so
And who's our current contractor?
J&H. So you change the scope to add these other ones and
So it wouldn't hurt to put it out back out to bid,
No.
but taking in consideration the
right, when the bids come
when the
in,
bids come in, you can take into consideration, the cemetery boards, their opinion on, what they work with and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's what was the contract now? Remember what the numbers were?
28.5, I believe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's
28.
significant.
28,750 for the current.
For the current one, yeah,
terms. And so
yeah.
with the addition of
So-
the other 2 parcel, pieces and
Yeah.
Will
some
be
of
a
the other
little bit
things, I mean,
higher.
it's
Yeah.
a dollar amount that's twice what the charter, threshold is
Right,
for.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. So we making a motion on that need a motion to go to bid or you just need recommendation or?
I think if
we
I'm
won't-
understing clearly, the board would like it to go out to bid.
Yeah,
so
we're
I
not,
can
we're not waiving the
work with-
bid process. So we just continue with as the charter states and we'll bid it out. Is that what everybody, that's, I think? Yeah. Yep. I'll speak for everybody, but yeah. Oh, all right. Oh, you got something on there something about a town planner here, right? Yeah. Oh.
So You'll see there's a draft agreement to share the planner position with the town of Newcastle. Following the discussion down in Blue Bay Harbor with Julia. I knew I had to try and look quickly to find out, how can we keep our town planner? We only budgeted for half of the cost, and as the other half was coming in from another town through this agreement. So as I mentioned, there's probably a couple other options I could pursue. I know there's interest. It's not with a single town. But I know one of the board's goals is to kind of foster a relationship with the Newcastle board and try and find ways to work together on things. And so I called Sarah and I knew that they were looking into planning services and had budgeted for of some form planner. And so I presented this with her. We met with her, Isabel and I met with her a couple weeks ago, and this is something that she seems excited about to present to her board next week.
Next week there, okay.
So they'll meet next week.
Yep.
So if this board was interested in, feeling okay about this new partnership, and allowing me to sign that if their board is in agreement to that. I believe this was something that was signed before between the two managers.
Do we need a motion? Do we need a?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we sign this agreement with Newcastle. I think this is actually an improvement over the previous because of the logistics of it. I mean, we're right here. And I think that relations between the two towns can improve. So I think this is helpful.
I will second that.
Do we need a motion, or is it just, you're just a continuation of, because Newcastle hasn't seen this yet, right?
Right. I mean, it's like an intertown agreement. I'm not remembering if it's something in the charter that so Isabel is our employee and is not one that's appointed by the board. I typically, as the manager, would have control over that. The agreement between the two towns, it might be wise just to have a nod from the board or a motion from the board, perhaps
To
saying
continue, yeah, so it's.
have these two towns
okay.
agree. So if it was to allow me to sign the agreement, should the Newcastle.
Okay. So, yeah, so Tom, if you
did.
amend to have Andy continue with.
Okay.
Because he has to pursue it through Newcastle still.
And I will continue my second.
Yep, so.
All right, all right.
All right, so you got a motion
got
as
that? All right.
amended to, all right, Linda, we're gonna.
Yeah, Linda, make a motion that we give the authority to the town manager to pursue the agreement to share our town planner.
And I will second that. Yeah.
Any discussion? All those in
Now,
favor? Oh, sorry, Josh.
Shouldn't we get out of our current agreement? Should we acknowledge that we are getting out of our current agreement before we move into a new agreement?
So the way I interpreted the previous agreement, it had between Julie and I as the managers, we had the authority to terminate that.
Right,
That's how we both
Yeah.
interpreted
Is
that. So it wasn't
terminated.
something that the board, we thought had to approve.
right. I just wanted to
Yes.
acknowledge that
Yeah.
we accepted that it's
Right.
terminated.
Okay.
No,
Yes,
Good
yeah.
point.
Yes.
Good point. Oh, okay. All right, any discussion? We just did that. All those in favor? Right, that was it. Okay, motion carries. So yeah, I'd like to keep Isabel along. We're in good thing,
Yay.
so.
Happy birthday, Isabel.
Oh, thank you. What a great birthday present.
Happy birthday.
to you.
Happy birthday, dear Isabel. Happy birthday to you. Geez, that was. Sorry, Isabel, that was a little late.
Wow.
You'll have to get your own cake and candles.
Oh.
Yeah, you can have
Oh, but look, we get to keep you.
Is that all you got for action items and
Yes.
manager notes or anything? Okay. Discussion items. Did you want to touch base? You got a couple things on there with broadband and personnel policy.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Broadband
to
is.
circle back on the broadband piece. This was one we talked about the goals. It's kind of generally on the radar from what I remember.
Mhm.
But without having appropriated any significant funding to go forward with matching grants or pursue anything substantial, I'm kind of left with, so I'm keeping an ear open to what's happening, what's out there, what's available. Our Mid-Coast Managers Group, I brought in someone from the Maine Connectivity Authority to talk to us about the grant opportunities they have. There is still, as far as I know at this point, a congressional directed spending a request from the two towns, Newcastle and Damariscotta, for some money for expansion.
Mhm.
It has not been, again, as of last week, there's no decision on that yet, so it's still in the running. And so that was a pretty substantial grant amount or funding amount. What we could potentially do with that if the board didn't speculate, but so just keeping the board appraised of that. And so kind of how far down the road do we want to go with? I think a lot would depend on if we get that. Newcastle's a little bit different position. They've afforded a little more money in their budget. I think they're looking at leveraging what they've put in a reserve, if you will, to try and snowball effect and go after additional funds and try and make it to a point where they can reach, I believe they were hoping to reach perhaps the unserved community members or
Yes.
resident
Yeah.
houses. So
I was on that board.
just more letting you know, I think, absent any other information from the board, it's just kind of letting you know that that's possibly still out there and we might see something if that's something the board still wants to see.
Definitely.
I was talking to Chris Johnson last week, and Somerville is all set to go. They're looking for some permits or what have you like this. They have had wire delivered,
Really? Yeah.
so they're just doing the permits and things like that, and they will be ready to go.
Where did they get funding? Is it through?
I didn't go into detail
Yeah.
with Chris on that.
Yeah.
I think they got some, I think they raised money on their own
Did they?
Yeah.
from Texas, I think.
Yeah.
And then I think they got some grant money as well.
Here's the grant money.
Yeah.
ARPA funds maybe or something. Yeah.
Chris is
Might wanna
very
check with them,
aggressive.
you know?
Yeah, well, good for them. For them. So hopefully it's a project we can take back up and, just keep the ear to the, ear to the ground on it, I guess. So.
I think we really should
Yeah.
be taking it back up again.
I know one of the grant options that was a little intriguing was, it was a technical assistance grant, basically. Forget what it was called. In any case, it was, it would provide some funding for a community to work with a provider going into the process, whereas before you had gotten to the point where the committee formed, you looked at the different options, you put an RFP out essentially, or how, you'd gotten to that point to find providers that would be interested. And so how they see success is communities come to them with a partnership already in mind, and then they help foster that next step to get ready to apply for their next level grant that would help provide construction. And the way they've got it structured, there's a lot of money coming down federal level that would come through this agency. The way they're looking at funding it is, they kind of would put a dollar amount towards each connection, and it kind of puts it out there so that the community or in partnership with the provider, there's kind of a cap on, if awarded it, there's kind of a cap on what you'd have to put in as matching fund. And it was in the ballpark of like $700 per premise, and that the grant could potentially cover the remaining funds. So it's not guaranteed, but that's kind of the structure they're going with. So it really depends on how many connections you're looking to make, the partner's ability and willingness to do that. So that was a step that I was kind of intrigued about, knowing, we were a little further back from what Newcastle was, from what I was understanding. But they're still going ahead, trying to go ahead with what's on the other side of the bridge. So.
Work the relationship with them. Maybe it will foster into other things going
Yeah, I want
forward.
to stay in touch with what they're doing.
As far as the personnel policy goes, I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at that since the last meeting. Have questions. The only thing I might add that wasn't in there originally. Back under section 16.
Is it in here?
No.
No. Oh, okay. Not important, right? I mean, we don't need
It
to.
was, didn't re-include. I wasn't sure if folks would bring that back with them or not. The section 16 speaks to political and outside activities, purchasing conflict, a few other things. But just, the consideration for, if we have any volunteers that work with the town, potentially if there's small stipends associated with that work they do, by the simple reading, they wouldn't be eligible to run for certain positions. So just kind of want to, is there a way that we can look at that? And so MMA has, you run into a lot of small towns, a lot of dual hats that are worn. And is there a way to look at that? Where they draw a line is the conflict of interest between an appointed position that the board oversees and appoints, and where those duties cross. And so if you're serving in a capacity that the board doesn't appoint or directly oversee, and wanted to serve on one of the boards, because there's a couple of them that you wouldn't be able to serve on potentially. Do we want to include that allowance, acknowledging that it's hard to get volunteers to do things, and if they wear multiple hats, great, but just making sure it doesn't fall in a foul of how MMA is interpreted that, where that line exists.
So I was on the Board of Appeals, but now I'm on the Board of Selectmen. Does
That
that
one's a
take me
clear-
off?
That one's a clear, can't
That
do
takes
both.
me off. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's.
Fine.
that one's been clear.
Yeah.
And in the municipal officers manual, they kind of have a list.
Yeah,
of-
that's pretty clear.
Incompatible office.
Okay.
office.
So typically is, where, so that one's a different circumstance, has a checks and a balance where, something the appeals board might decide on, might have to
Right.
come to the select board, and so
Right.
you can't really be on both. And then,
Okay.
and again, where, you go through appointing certain department heads perhaps, or,
Can you send out a draft
I
of the
can.
exact language?
yeah, I'll just add that one in. I had sent, the other one, I'll just add that one in and resend it.
Yeah.
And I'll attach the MMA page for what it's worth, if you want to read that. Yeah. Were there other questions or feedback on what had been?
It's pretty straightforward. I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I appreciate you going through it and updating it, and yeah, it needs to be
Yeah.
done, so.
Yeah.
You're taking the tedious work of doing that, so. Is that it from
That's,
Mr. Manager down there?
Yeah. I don't know if there's other things you guys have on.
No, I'll start, with selectmen's discussion. We'll start Tom down here if he's got anything.
Well, I don't want to open Pandora's box, but I've been thinking about the train stop in Newcastle and wondering if that could be resurrected. I think it'd be good for the town. I know Mac Luckus was involved with it back in 2013. It was supposed to go forward. But since I keep hearing the train whistle going through that station, I don't know what the potential is. Probably in this economic climate, it's probably not good, but I'm gonna sort of do a little self research on it to see if there's any potential for, getting that to be a new stop.
This doesn't have anything to do with the train that goes out of Alma, right?
No.
That's a whole
Oh, yeah.
separate.
Oh, that's.
That's
Train that
their
goes
own
nowhere?
little thing.
That's an antique train.
Right, that's a little, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
This is like the one that
Little round
actually
circle,
goes,
Yeah,
right,
there's
right,
a
right.
train that goes up to Rockland, and it's probably a freight train, but there
Oh,
could be a car.
Talking usually about passenger.
Yeah, with the
service.
traffic in
Well-
Wisconsin and the ability potentially to go all the way to Boston from Newcastle.
Yeah.
Would be nice, but
Newcastle down.
it's probably not the right time, but I'm gonna do a little independent research. I'll tell you one thing, though, that train station would have to be significantly renovated. It's in I was over there today looking around.
Oh, yeah.
It's really in
small
disrepair,
building over there.
but
right.
anyway, it's historical. The thing was going in 1851, so
Yeah.
Is Newcastle interested in having
I
it?
haven't talked to them yet. I just,
That was
poking
just
around
you.
today.
Okay, okay.
that's it.
I think we're, cool idea.
Lou?
Keep it.
I heard a report today that, and you would probably know more about this than I would, that the price of gas, they think might start creeping up again.
After the election, probably.
Well, it went up a penny from,
Yeah.
Well,
the
after
national,
the election,
but I'm
that's
not
supposed to be
really
done
concerned
before.
about the gasoline as I am
Yeah.
the heating oil.
They already approved it.
Yeah.
Don't sign the
Yeah.
paper.
Goes high. Yeah.
Heating oil is very high. We have an elder population. We've got the oldest population in the United States, in our state. Want to make sure somehow that our elderly are protected and know that they can come to us for assistance. I don't want to see in the newspaper someday that so-and-so passed away because
Yeah.
they froze to death. So I think we've got to watch out for
There's a-
our population.
Yeah.
And
is it Colby
if
and Gale?
we can ask the oil companies if there's anything we can do to help.
Well,
Yeah.
Colby and Gale has,
Well, there's a community energy fund.
Correct.
Community energy. fund
right, and they
that
give
is-
huge
is,
amounts already.
They do, yeah, they're quite involved in the community, but, to Lou's point, there's town assistance. Available as well, but people have
Yeah.
to, they've got to come in and. But
Yeah,
we do
do
have
that.
one, some
Yeah.
people freezing to death. Yeah.
You can,
We do have limited funds available for.
and I mean,
Am I
I just want to be clarify what funds the town might have with
Yeah.
regards to this.
The,
Help me out, Lou.
yeah. We have a foundation for the pool.
The Philbrook Fund.
Philbrook Fund.
Yeah,
You don't, that's going.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's
that's
go.
one, right? Yeah.
yeah.
That went poof.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a Mason, you can go to the Masons and they'll help out a Mason.
But there's funds, yeah, community energy fund's a big one. That's.
That's
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah, that's just.
We don't.
Yeah.
Um.
What I'm
that's a big
saying
one.
is just look out for your neighbors.
Good point, good point.
Well,
Andrea?
at Lincoln Academy, we do ask the children. I mean, I am actively always asking if they have heat, and they tell me
Sure.
when they don't.
Yeah.
And then we go and find. I mean, there are,
Reach out and, yeah.
we
there's-
do,
there's
we do,
community.
yeah.
Awesome.
It's
awesome.
really, really important.
Do you have anything else to add this evening for discussion?
Not on camera.
All right. That being said, Josh?
No, I just want to say that it's the first time I've ever been on a select board that we've gone against our attorney's wishes. So I just want to throw that out there.
I think
Yeah.
sometimes you
You have to do the
have
right
to do
thing.
what is
Right
the
thing.
proper thing to do.
Well, I'm afraid
We
it's setting
screwed
a
up.
precedence. I don't want it to set a precedent.
Well, you know,
it is.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Let's assume that it happens again and the code enforcement person gives bad information to somebody that causes them to violate an ordinance. Do you think that person is responsible or the code enforcement officer?
The code enforcement officer is
exactly.
responsible. I
So
agree.
If I could just share, you know, it's really important for town staff, and what this will do for us, you know, at the very least, it'll put us back in check to make sure we don't go beyond our boundaries and our authority. The code officer doesn't have any authority, and, you know, we don't have a process where the property owner comes and says, hey, can I get approval to sell a piece of property? You know, we don't have that in place. If you're going to create a subdivision, yes, you should trust that you can come to the town staff, get reliable information, but there's no approval process to go and sell a piece of property, to gift a piece of property, right? So I think it's worth acknowledging that, you know, and again, we'll take that back and say, we won't go beyond our authority here,
Yeah.
right? You know, because we can't step into these issues. So I thought what we presented was a reasonable
Yeah.
solution that imposed no fines.
No, but there's a cost
Absolutely.
involved
Yeah,
for an inadvertent, non-intentional mistake that was caused by an employee of the town.
There's lessons to be learned on both sides of it and
Yeah.
we should
So
move forward. Yeah.
do we need something?
I don't know what you mean.
Do we need to
procedure
have a-
for that to happen?
Like,
you
do
No,
we
it's just,
need
again,
to have permission
No,
to?
I think it's just a
it's-
reminder that we won't go beyond our authority, and we'll have to make sure we, you know, are very clear to people coming in for
Yeah.
permission. I don't have the authority to grant
Yeah,
that, but we
yeah.
always act on permits. If you have a question and want to submit a building, you have a question
Yeah,
about,
that's
can I
good.
build this? Can I build that? Here's the ordinance.
Yeah,
Please
that's good.
interpret it as you will. When you have a building permit
Right.
filled out, we can talk more detail about this.
right.
If you're concerned about a subdivision, you should probably consult an attorney or a land, attorney on,
Yeah.
will you create it? You know, again, here's the checklist, here's the guidance,
Yep.
here's how our ordinance reads.
That's a good
But
approach.
we shouldn't be, people should, know that we aren't the CEO, the planner, myself, none of us are the stopping in the ultimate authority to say ahead of time, yes, you can do that. Yes, you can do that.
Yep.
In that
That's
regard,
good.
what's come
That's
up.
good.
There's no
That's good.
Because-
ill intent on either side.
No.
Yeah, Folks trust the.
But there's nothing
We
that
don't wanna-
says
we don't
whether
wanna
you
do
can
this to
sell
anybody
land or
else.
not.
No.
right?
No, that's a whole different.
It's a whole different
Whole
thing.
different hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
I mean, This, it's been going on.
Yeah.
It's been
How
going
did
on.
he even get
Yeah.
involved in the subdivision? Why can't he just sell his land?
Well, that's what we're.
I mean, that's a
Yeah,
big, that's a big messy.
It was
It's a
very
bit
messy.
messy.
Yeah. but
Yeah.
the
It's through the
intent-
town.
That I don't feel like I understood anything.
That's all right. You
or
can, and you're
subdivision.
right to abstain if you don't.
I don't understand subdivisions.
Yeah.
I guess I better
Are
learn.
we, Josh, you commented, I'm not gonna add anything.
Well,
to
that was
the-
just my comment.
The message, yeah. I'm not gonna add anything this evening, so, you wanna have a
I'll
motion?
make a motion to adjourn.
Josh made a motion, Lou seconds, all those in favor? Gotcha, all right.
Oh.
Thank you, everybody.
So, will you be